Hi, this is Sherri Richards, your host of Inspired Good Fat Life, and we are actually recording from South Africa, Johannesburg or Joburg today. And I'm really excited about our new guest, our guest. Well, he's a new guest, and he's actually our tour guide who put this whole trip together. And his name is Jay Cameron, and he is with Maximum Impact Travel. And before I start asking Jay some questions and to introduce himself, I just want to remind you that this is Good Fat Life. And if you want to know more about the magazine, we have their new issue out. Go to goodfatlife.com and learn all kinds of great things. So that said, hi, Jay.
Hey Sherry, how you doing?
Good, good. So as I said, we met a couple days ago. Well, we actually met months ago um,
Right.
over email and planning this trip, and but we actually met in person a couple weeks ago or a couple days ago. I'm sorry, I'm time zoned and jet lagged and full brains from all the things that you're introducing us to here in South
Hmm.
Africa, right?
Yes,
As
yes.
As one of my colleagues says, I thought I knew a lot, and I'm learning that there's so many things I didn't know. Um, so one of the, I know you have a partnership with Urban International Intellectuals, and on their journal, one of their motto is "Learn from the past to create the future." Which I just love, and it's really been in context with the trip that we've had so far. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and since you put this together, how that inspires you?
Sure. One, I want to thank you for having me on your show today, and I'm looking forward to sharing with your audience. And I tell you that when I think back on really learning from the past and how it impacts our future and how we can learn from it and do better, going on these trips taught me so much, especially when I think back on coming to the continent of Africa. My first trip to Africa was in November of 2018. And my mind was blown because I realized I didn't know as much as I thought that I knew. And I really realized that I didn't know much at all, when I looked at it from a broader perspective. And I knew that it was important to bring people to have these experiences because I would come back to the States and I would hear people speaking as if they knew a lot. And then you're like, no, there's another piece of the puzzle. There's another perspective that you might want to consider. And so we started bringing curating tours to 12 different countries on the continent of Africa, and that's when Urban Intellectuals saw what we were doing. That's when we formed the partnership and created the travel experiences along with their educational resources, and so we're seeing that education through travel is just another way of bridging this information gap that so many of us have experienced in the U.S. and Canada and much of the Western world. And so that's why coming to South Africa has been so enlightening for so many people, especially on this particular trip, because you get to see things just from a completely different perspective. And I've been watching you, watching how you're like, wow, wait a minute, and you're processing it. And I think that's the part all of us, when we have these moments, we process it. And then as we're processing it, it causes us to think about things on a deeper level. And when that happens, we begin to ask questions. We begin to, just kind of try to put pieces of the puzzle together, and then it broadens our perspectives. And just having some of the conversations that you and I have had, I can tell that that's been happening with you as well, as well as with the other members of the group.
Absolutely. I have to honestly say it's been mind-boggling in the best of ways. And one of the things with Good Fat Life that is so important um, is that we are open, right? And so, whether it's nutrition or whether it's movement or relationships or finances, your spirituality, whatever kind of area of life that it is, when we can have these opportunities and step into, um, I don't know, be open to the experience, right? Because I
Yes.
think even though a lot of what we're doing is historical, so do you want to just talk a minute about where we were today at the museum that we were at?
Oh, yes. We were at the Constitution Hill in Johannesburg, and then we were at the courthouse, which is the Supreme Court, and then we were at the Old Fort. And what that did, I believe what it did for so many of us, we were literally standing in the spaces that people were held captive in South Africa during apartheid, even afterwards. And we learned that it's like we could see the physical remains of the places that they had to live and the conditions that they had to endure. But then we also were learning about the stories of the humans who had to deal with all kinds of abuses and oppression, and the effect, the lasting effect that it had on this particular nation in Africa. So something that Eugene was saying, he was like, I've read about this in the books, but there's something different about being there in person. He said, being here, he says it has a tremendous value that a book cannot give me. And when he said that, it was almost like that moment when you realized that what you envisioned had come to pass, because that was what I felt when I first went to Ghana. And we hear this every time, wherever we go on the continent, every place that select, we select understanding that we want people to have a well-rounded experience, but we want them to have that educational component, and just watching how the light bulbs come on, like, wow, I didn't know that.
Right,
Hmm.
right. And
They
we
didn't
were
teach me
able
that
to,
one.
well, and we were able to actually be in the Supreme Court for South Africa, and when we were all kind of marveling how that would never happen in America, to be able to just stand and take pictures and um, sit in the chairs of the Supreme Court of the United States. It's just was such a surreal experience. And the other thing that's really struck me too is, and again, this we talk about this a lot in Good Fat Life, is how we take our past and move it into how we want to move forward. So we're really all about reaching our full potential and supporting each other in our community in being the best selves that we can possibly be. And, this is just another one of those experiences where when you open your mind and you listen and commune and share with other people, you just, I don't know, you move to a different level. It's hard to
And
articulate in some ways, right?
yes, because you're still processing it, you're still in the moment. But I can tell you that just from having lived multiple experiences in different parts of Africa, and even in America and in Brazil, and different parts of the world, what it does for you, what it did for me, is it helped me to understand the context of my life. And when you talk about being well, emotionally or physically, or whatever someone wants to be well, when you begin to understand the context of your story, then it helps to make sense of some things that might not have made sense before. And so what it did, I'll give you an example. When I was in Ghana and I was standing at the dungeons, the slave dungeons in Ghana, it clicked. I said, wow. I said, wait a minute. I said, the beginning of my existence in America began in places like this along the coast of West Africa. And when I stood there, then it started making sense. When I think back on family dysfunctions, when I think back on certain mindsets and attitudes that may have been adopted and passed down, I said, now I understand, because of what happened here. A part of my story started here. And now I understand why people may have done some of the things that they had done. And then it prompted me to go interview some of my elders to get more context, more recent contextual understanding. And so that's what happens. But if I just stayed in one place in America and just kind of went with the flow of everything, I would have missed that piece of the puzzle. And so, what traveling has done for so many people that I've seen is that they now start thinking and processing and asking questions. And then they want to bring their family and their friends and they say, hey, you know what? There's more to this story. And so that helps us to become well if we're really seeking that, and again, getting these answers, because sometimes in life, things happen that don't make any sense. And we're spending so much time trying to figure out, well, why did this happen and how did this happen? But then when you go back a little bit further and a little bit further, say, okay, I'm starting to understand. And so now what I'm seeing happen, because being an educator, if you will, an influencer, now you're able to understand the context of so many of the people, or the story of so many of the people that you come in contact with. And so now, again, it expands, it broadens, and then it also gives you a level of empathy, and then a level of insight. So those are things that I believe that help people to be well across the board, whether it's someone who understands the story or whether it's helping someone to understand the story. It all comes together to help us to become better people.
Absolutely. And I'm also finding that by having conversations with people as they're beginning to understand more about their own stories, it helps me understand more about my story or ask questions differently. Right? So
Yes,
it's just because you go, oh, well, that's your story, and that's so interesting because these kinds of things happened in my story or my family history. Not the same, but it turns things. So you ask a question that never would have occurred before. So,
yes, and
um,
I think that's a wonderful way to for people to have a more mature dialogue, because now everyone is, we have a lot of similarities here, or maybe that with the differences that we have, maybe we understand why we have the differences and who may have influenced these differences and how we can, begin to understand each other better. So yeah, you said it perfectly.
right. So, yeah, it's just fascinating. It's like when we were looking at that map, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Now, French is spoken here and here and here that we're on the world, right? And
Yes,
so there was a lot of discovering of different. We use discovering loosely, discovering of new places by people who spoke French or Portuguese or
yes,
whatever. So it's interesting. Well, I so appreciate you taking the time to talk to our viewers and share your perspective on travel and how travel contributes to, I would even call it our own personal self care.
absolutely.
Because wellness, and mental wellness, and it's self care. That's I'm just claiming it right now. Travel is part of self care.
Absolutely. Well, when you just to that point, when you begin to get out of an environment or a particular routine and you kind of shake it up a little bit, it's kind of like for those who go to the gym, they don't want to have the muscle do the same routine because it can hinder the growth. So they like to have muscle confusion and do different exercises with the muscle to prompt it to grow. And that's, I believe, and what's worked for me is that when I take myself out of familiar environments and I go to environments, it prompts my brain to work differently. When I taste different foods, when I see different sights, when I meet different people, it does something and it enriches me and it enriches them. And so, yeah, travel can definitely contribute towards positive self care.
Posit Yeah, so it does, and it pushes you out of your comfort zone, which is good
Absolutely.
too, right? Right, and then
Abs-
also as we're discovering is that it's important to be strong when you're traveling because it takes energy, and, so it's another part of self-care um, is just I'm taking Pilates 4 times a week because I wanna be strong to travel. I mean, that's one of the reasons, it's not the only reason, but it's a big reason, um, because we need endurance. So it all kind of it's not one thing, it's many things, right?
Absolutely, and definitely when you talk about the physical endurance to travel, the emotional endurance to travel, sometimes you run into different challenges, cultural challenges, but if you're prepared for it, again, it helps you to grow. And I would not trade any of the experiences that I've had over the past 4 years because literally the person I was 4 years ago is not the same person I am today. And I attribute that to traveling and being willing to explore. My confidence level has gone to heights that I didn't know. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, but I'm not a mountain climber, but I was able to do it. And the curiosity, I was no longer ashamed to be curious. And it just led me down a road and led so many other people down the road. I watch people doing it. They embrace travel and their whole life opens up and they begin to see things and experience things that they dreamed about. But now they're able to actually
You
have it
do.
in their life tangibly.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's big. Well, you say the last four years, I think you said, how much you've changed, and just traveling on your trip for the last 3 days has changed my life. So I
Mm.
can't imagine 4 years. So, which is great. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jay. Um, and we look forward to the rest of the trip.
Absolutely. And this is the first trip. We look forward to having you on even more trips.
Yeah, we're already planning the next one, so that's great. So,
Excellent.
so good. Yeah, so thanks. And just a reminder for those of you that are interested in learning more about living the good fat life, which we like to say, go to goodfatlife.com and check out our magazine and our podcasts and our workshops and everything else. So, on that happy note, go live your good fat life. Thank you.